Before we start today's show, I want to know who the Falcons quarterback was when you first became a fan. Maybe it was Matt Ryan, Michael Vick, someone before then. Get in the comment section and let me know. What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Falcons Today. Coming up on today's show, I've got three players that I have been a little bit on the half-glass empty side, a little pessimistic about, and I hope these players go out and prove me wrong, because believe me when I say I am not putting my ego above this team winning football games in 2024. So here are three guys that I hope prove me wrong in 2024, starting with wide receiver Rondale Moore, the player the Falcons acquired in a trade via Desmond Ridder, who is now their number 3 wide receiver. He was a second-round draft pick in 2021 out of Purdue by the Cardinals, and he was a speedster coming out of West Lafayette. He ran a 4.28 40-yard dash, one of the best 40-yard dash runs we have seen in the last 5 or so years. So Moore clearly comes in with a ton of speed. He may not be able to run every single route. He may not be able to win contested jump balls, but when you have 4.28 speed, the name of the game is pretty simple. Get him the ball in open space. Unfortunately, that hasn't really happened through 3 years in Arizona. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be a Cardinals fan and tell you and diagnose what went wrong with Rondale Moore through all 3 years. There's probably some blame to go around, but there's definitely blame that falls on Rondale Moore's shoulders. And hopefully, with a new change of scenery and maybe some more consistent quarterback play, Rondale Moore can start to live up to those second-round pick expectations. Now, the reason why I've been a little bit on the half-glass empty side for Rondale Moore going into this year is we all know the Falcons with the new coaching staff are going to be passing the ball a whole lot more than they did under Arthur Smith. And when you look at the Falcons' top 3 wide receivers, look at the targets they had last year compared to the Rams' top 3 receivers where Raheem Morris and Zack Robinson come over from. Drake London, with 110 targets, barely edges out Cooper Kupp last year, who was second in targets, and he also missed about a third of the season. Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore, they have fewer targets than the number 3 wide receiver in the Rams' 2023 offense, and Puka Nacua blows everyone in the Falcons out of the water. I mean, you could almost combine Drake London and Darnell Mooney, the number 1 and the number 2 wide receiver, and Puka Nacua would barely have less targets than those two guys combined. Now, let's compare it to the Minnesota Vikings receivers from 2022. I did that year because Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson were both injured in 2023. So how about the last time both guys were fully healthy? In 2022, I mean, Jefferson, Thielen, both over 100 targets. Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore, 62, 61. KJ Osborne as the number 3 receiver getting 90 targets, which is 29 more than the Falcons' number 2 receiver in Darnell Mooney. So the point I'm trying to make here, and the reason why I'm a little bit on the pessimistic side, is there's going to be a lot of volume coming to a receiver like Rondale Moore that simply has not had that in his NFL career, and we'll see how he handles all those targets. Now, the way Rondale Moore proves me wrong is his speed makes him a yards after catch threat in open space. I don't want to see Rondale Moore just be some gadget guy. I don't want to see him having a couple of Swiss Army knife plays, but that's really about it. I'd love to see Rondale Moore be a threat on first, second, and third down, right? Not someone who's like a specialty player. When you're the number 3 receiver in an offense that's going to probably finish top 10 in passing, you have to be more than just a one-trick pony. And so that's the way Rondale Moore, I think, proves me wrong. He proves I'm not just a fast guy with pads on. I'm not just some track star that can run to the sideline and pick up a first down. Like, can we see Rondale Moore be a legit yards after catch threat with the ball in open space and be someone that they can go to on all 3 downs? Now, with that all being said, what do you think Atlanta's biggest need is at the moment? Wide receiver, edge rusher, or cornerback? To me, this is the consensus top 3 needs. Let me know which one you think is the biggest one, though, down below. Moving on to the second player I've doubted, it's running back Tyler Allgeier. Now, I'm not doubting Allgeier because of his abilities. I'm doubting Allgeier because of the role I believe he is on a path for, which is not a very large role. In his rookie year, ran for 1,000 yards, Falcons rookie rushing record. Then in 2023, we see a slight downtick in his usage, right? Down to 186 carries because, of course, they drafted Bijan Robinson. Now, if I take it one step further, compare the Falcons' rushing attack the last 2 seasons compared to the Rams and the Vikings, which I think we're going to see some level of a combination of those 2 offenses in Atlanta this year with Kirk Cousins, Zack Robinson, and Raheem Morris all meeting up in Atlanta. And look at how far apart the Falcons are from the Rams and the Vikings in rushing attempts the last 2 years. I mean, the Vikings, if they run anything like what Kirk Cousins has done the last 2 seasons, you're just not going to see a lot of usage for any running back. And when you've got Bijan Robinson, he's going to get his touches, but there may not be a whole lot of touches that go on beyond Bijan Robinson. And like we just saw, the Rams went from 25th all the way to 12th. What was the reason for a 13-spot jump? This guy named Kyren Williams broke out. So once the Rams started to finally have success with the running back, they went to that back, and that worked well for them. And so I think if the Falcons with this new kind of Rams-Vikings kind of hybrid combination staff and player personnel meeting up in Atlanta, if this coaching staff in Atlanta wants to go down the path of, hey, when you have a star like Kyren Williams, feed him the rock, which they have that in Bijan Robinson, then I start to wonder, well, where does Allgeier get his touches? Like, let's just say the Falcons plan to give 25 carries a game to their running backs, okay? And let's say last year that same number was given for Arthur Smith's offense. I think at a true simplistic level, the difference we'll see is the Falcons are not going to run the ball less than they were last year, or at least not a drastic drop-off. It's just going to be a much more Bijan Robinson-focused attack, and it's not going to be a split of Robinson and Allgeier like we saw a little bit of last year. So how does Allgeier prove me wrong? I think he excels at the goal line, where he's probably going to get the most amount of touches, and he has to make the most of those touches. And then when he's got a short yardage situation, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, he's kind of moved the chains and probably pick up some extra yards too. Like, he's got to make every single touch count, because I just don't think this is going to be a ground game that's going to finish top 5 in carries. And there's going to be a lot of touches to go around for all these backs. I think if we saw last year a 60-40 split, for example, between Robinson and Allgeier, this year it'll probably be more like a 70-30, 75-25. So unfortunately for Allgeier, that's through no fault of his own. That's just the direction they want to head, because you don't pay Kirk Cousins $180 million to make sure your backup running back gets a whole lot of touches. So when he does get his opportunities, he has to make them count. Some trivia here as we continue in our summer of trivia to keep you guys engaged until the regular season returns. Who's the Falcons' all-time rushing touchdown leader with 60? Let me know in the comment section below. We will reveal the answer later on in today's episode. Third player I've doubted that I want to prove me wrong, defensive end Zack Harrison, a 3rd-round draft pick out of Ohio State last year. In his rookie season, put together a really strong ending, 33 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 1 pass breakup, all those sacks coming in the last third of the season. So there's a lot to be optimistic about the way he ended last year going into next season. Now, it's no secret the Falcons have not made any major additions to their front 5. They lose Calais Campbell, Bud Dupree. They draft Braylon Trice. They bring in guys like Rukaroro from Clemson in round 2, Brandon Dorless. But all things considered, like, they don't have a ton of additions to be made at the edge rusher position. Now, you guys know I love my stats and history. So what I did was I looked at round 3 edge rushers from years 1 to years 2 in sacks. And that's not the only way to evaluate a player, but we'll just start there. And you can see that there have been some guys that have made some great jumps, right? Alex Wright, last year for the Browns in his second season, went from 0 sacks in year 1 to 5 sacks in year 2. Baron Browning for the Broncos a few years before that. DeMarvin Leal, like, a lot of guys made improvements. And that's somewhat expected, right? The longer you're in the NFL, you should learn more and improve from year to year. Now, that's not always going to be an exact chart or line graph or whatever, but overall, by and large, there is a lot of improvements that happen from years 1 to years 2. for even guys that go in round 3 of the draft that might not be marked up as premier pass rushers. So, how does Zach Harrison prove me wrong? Well, he flat out has a breakout season with 6 or more sacks. He takes his 3 sacks from last year, and he doubles it in year 2. Now, I am a little bit skittish about the pass rush because leaning on a third-round draft pick from last season with 3 sacks to be one of your top 2 pass rushers is a ballsy bet to make. And unfortunately for Zach Harrison, if he has a 6-sack season, I think that's a great year for him, right? Double your sacks from year 1 to year 2. We shouldn't have to have like insane expectations for him. That's unfair to the guy. But when you're relied on to be the number 2 pass rusher on this team after Arnold Ebiketie, like 6 sacks as the number 2 guy, I've seen worse in the NFL, but that's probably not going to do it if the number 1 sack player is getting like 8, right? That's just not a big enough contribution to the overall team sack effort if this Falcons defense is going to be something this year. So that's really no fault of Harrison's, own doing, but he proves me wrong by putting together an awesome 6-sack campaign at least. Now, who do you think will be the team sack leader in 2024? Is it Mr. Second-round pick from Penn State, another Big Ten player in day 2, Zach Harrison, or is it someone else like Grady Jarrett coming off his torn ACL, Onyemata, Braylon Trice the rookie? I'll let you guys pick the field if you want to, but don't be afraid to get in the comment section and shoot your shot down below. All right, we'll circle back to our trivia question to wrap up today's show. Who is the Falcons' all-time rushing touchdown leader with 60? If you need some time, pause the video. Think about it for a second. Drumroll, please. It is, of course, one of my all-time favorite Falcons players, Michael Turner, 60 touchdowns. He is second in yards, which is almost fitting that Michael Turner, the big bruising back, has way more touchdowns than he does, well, higher up on the touchdowns list than he does on the yards list. But Michael Turner at number 1 with 60 touchdowns. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Enjoy your 4th of July weekend and whatnot, and I'll catch up with everyone later.